Hello, folks, and welcome to this week's Bible study and current events. You're glad you're with us. I mean that. I wish there was more here, and I wish there was a lot more out there, but we're here to talk to those who want to hear. I really sometimes am amazed at everybody that hears for the first time are so excited to hear it, but never come back. I can't figure that out. But anyway, we're glad you're with us. As always, we're going to start with current events. I want to read a few scriptures if I could. Revelation 21. That from time to time I read here to help me understand the promises that are hid for us. Those that love Christ, those that are faithful to Him. I like to read to you the promise He showed and has seen us. I don't know about you all, but there are times when my heart aches for what I see around me. Literally, I mean, it actually hurts, feels like. Almost a physical pain because you're hurting somebody inside for what you see around you. But that's going to come to an end one day. And our mind cannot comprehend perfect peace. It's impossible in this world to comprehend perfect peace in the field.
It is.
But in Revelation chapter 21, John talking, verse 1, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them, and they shall be His people, and God Himself shall be with them and be their God. Now this is the part I like. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Mm-hmm. Wow. Is that a precious promise?
Sweet.
Can you imagine one day with your loved ones and with them went on, being with them again and knowing you'll never part again throughout all eternity?
Oh, yes.
I know all of you here have lost a loved one somewhere close to parents or brothers or sisters or maybe children. And it just rips your heart out. But you won't see them again down here. But you will see them again one day in Christ. We're going to start off with the Week magazine. I didn't bring a lighter side this morning, so get right into some stuff here. Start off with some news that isn't all bad. A deaf hiker says she owes her life to a husky named Nanook. Amelia Mealing, 21, was hiking an Alaskan trail when she slipped and tumbled 700 feet down a snowy mountain. Bruised and confused, she saw a strange dog watching her and initially thought the animal was a wolf. Then she saw the collar and realized that Nanook, who lives with his owner near the start of the trail and often goes wandering by himself, wanted to help. He pulled her to safety after she fell while crossing a fast-flowing, freezing river and stayed on Milling's side, licking her face as she waited for rescuers. I believe the dog is a guardian angel, Miller said.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That is awesome.
Good week for karma after a group of rhino poachers who broke into a South African animal reserve were eaten by a pride of lions.
Yeah.
Officials said they found the remains of what appeared to be 3 poachers, along with a high-powered rifle, an axe, and some shoes and clothing. Everything was very spread out, the officials noted. Oh, heyday. And wit and wisdom. I bring out the worst in my enemies, and that's how I get them to defeat themselves. Think about that. I bring out the worst of my enemies, and that's how I'll get them to defeat themselves. When a person shows a true color sometimes, they destroy themselves. And anger, if you make them angry, they don't think straight. Mm-hmm. The true test of a man's character is what he does when no one is watching.
That's true.
By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail.
Of course, going back to that other one, somebody is always watching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where we here. And I know this, I'm sure everybody out there probably listened to those who Whitney Houston was. Mm-hmm. A black singer, and had a beautiful voice, she really did. Mm-hmm. And she committed suicide.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she did. It's been some time back. But I was wondering, she brought up, she was abused by some family members. She was a little girl, found this out. But she's also bisexual. Satan had a hold on her, and he took her life. Now, folks, I'm warning you that when you mess with sin, you're opening the door up to a lot of hell on earth and maybe a hell for eternity. Whitney Houston was a beautifully talented young lady that destroyed herself, allowing Satan to get inroads in her life. Yeah, she was abused, and that's really sad. But Christ could have got her out of that if someone just would have took time to tell her about it. I mean, it's just so sad to see that. I mean, how many people do you know that are talented? Even Elvis Presley, very talented man, obviously. I mean, overdosed on drugs. Michael Jackson. Wealth and fame didn't deliver him, did it? And this, how many of y'all remember Tab Hunter, a 1950s and 60s actor, icon type thing? Yeah. Back in 2005, he finally came out and said he's a homosexual. That was pretty well known for that. He did homosexual porno films. But he was a big icon of the 50s and 60s. That girl, well, anyway, he finally came out and said that he was a homosexual. He just died this year. But this is what I'm point to make on this is this: that every one of us watching this, me, everyone in here, one day is going to die. And what you do on this earth will go with you into eternity. If you don't accept Christ, eternity means damnation.
Mm-hmm.
You understand that? The sad part of it is the gift of salvation is free. It's paid for by the Son of God. No charge, no works needed. Just believe and receive and be born again. That's it. It sounds so simple, and it is simple. But sometimes it's so simple, Joe, that people can't comprehend it.
It's too easy.
It is. But Tab Hunter and Whitney Houston, famous people, are dead. Fame and fortune will not get you into glory. Only Christ will. I will move on. I'm not going to take time to read all these because I ran out of time before I know it. More people use a gun in self-defense each year than die in car accidents. Now think about that. But you don't hear that in the news, do you?
No.
You don't hear the news saying, well, this guy attacked. I mean, once in a while, but very seldom you hear this. But so more people are defending themselves with guns than those that die in car accidents in a year. I went to the chiropractor yesterday morning. Of course, I have a gun on my hip. The chiropractor's whole staff is armed, by the way. The girls that work here, they all have guns in the office. And he loves it when people carry guns. I was sitting there talking to some people around me, and a young guy came with a little 12-year-old girl. We got talking, and he was packing on his hip. The lady beside him said, I got one in my purse. And I thought, wow, I like where I live.
Mm-hmm.
You don't come to the doctor's office start shooting anybody. You might get shot. And I thought, this really makes me feel good to live in a little nowhere state like West Virginia that people around me were armed. Good people. It makes me feel good. So we are blessed here in some ways. We truly are. But let's move on. The Episcopal Church, which this last time we were here, I said God is gender neutral. Remember?
Yes.
Christ called him his father, but he's either lying or wrong. Well, the Episcopal Church is doing quite well financially. The diocese in Massachusetts is going to take $400 million and buy up stock in gun companies so they can influence gun companies to change the laws. $400 million of church money is going to buy stock in a gun company so they can influence their laws. I wonder what they do with $400 million to people that were hungry, needed shelter, sick, and needed care. What do you do with that, Joe?
What can you do working with street people?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. California Supreme Court, tyrants of that court, blocks the proposal to split the state into three parts. The people voted, they got the petition up, I should say, to vote on this November to split California into three parts, but the Supreme Court of the state stopped it.
Since when has California been run by the people?
There you go. But does this not show you that the people's will is not important? When a Supreme Court can overrule the people, you have a tyranny. And I've said this many times. If you don't think you live in a police state, when you're driving down the highway and see a cop come up behind you, what's the first thing you do? Yeah, you look at your speed. You make sure nothing's out of order because they're watching you. When you're afraid of the law, you live in a police state. Mm-hmm. True?
Yeah, Butch, I'd say the first thing that happens is your heart rate goes up.
Oh, I'm sure.
Before you even look at your speed.
Yeah, it does. Yes. Yeah. And there's a guy named Josh Hader, who's a pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's a teenager, 17 years old. He texted out some things that were, what do you call them, homophobic slurs and some racial slurs. 17 years old. Now he's a full-grown man, pitches for a team. And they come back and told him about that. It's wrong for him to do that at 17 years old. Isn't that sad? And of course, y'all know the Papa John's founder used the word nigger somewhere in a conversation, nothing about race. And he's now been kicked off. He's CEO of the company. They kicked him off the board. We live in a really messed up time. Mm-hmm. And people are scared to death to say anything. And I'm not, anybody knows me knows I'm not racist. I'm not. But why are we so picky? I mean, why do we let them dictate to us what we must think?
Or say.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And in San Francisco, to show how decrepit our nation's really coming, a new mayor out there, her name is, if I can find her real quick, Breed, last name is Breed. San Francisco streets are so polluted with human feces that they don't know what to do to get rid of it. The homelessness out there is almost doubled. Mm-hmm. And elderly people our age are now homeless. They're losing everything. But the human feces in the streets are getting so bad, they don't know how to stop it.
Well, Butch, there's robots that are going to live on human flesh.
Oh, yeah.
Why can't they just eat feces?
Oh, that'd be easy, wouldn't it? And even septic tank cleaned out, send me one of those things. Now, and I know this is a touchy situation, and people don't want to talk about it, but the illegal immigration problem is serious. Now, folks, this is so simple. They're either illegal or they're legal. If they come in illegally, they are criminals. Is that pretty simple? Mm-hmm. Laws are set up for a purpose. Immigrants are welcome here, but there's a way to come into it legally. We don't need freeloaders. We don't need criminals. We need people come in here that want to live here, be part of us, and produce and do what's right. Illegals are illegal. Yeah, Phil.
Well, Butch, didn't Satan say you'd be as gods?
Yeah, he did.
Well, when you're God, come on, you can determine, you can change anything you want. You can change the definition of this.
But you just can't say certain words.
Right.
San Francisco will allow non-citizens to vote in education elections. Non-citizens can vote in San Francisco's Board of Education elections after the city's Department of Education elections ruled to do away with citizenship requirements. Non-citizens seeking to vote in San Francisco's Board of Education elections must be at least 18 years old and residents of the city. There must also be parents, caregivers, or legal guardians of children under 19 years of old who reside in the city. Now pay attention. School boards determine property tax rates. So illegals get to vote, influence property taxes. Illegals. Illegal immigrants can now obtain driver's licenses. We wouldn't do that. I mean, how hard is it for you to get a driver's license? State pay medical insurance. Receive in-state college tuition. Free tuition. And may practice law in California. Is that a great state or what?
So a Mexican lawyer can go across the border and practice law in
Or
California.
you can become a lawyer. You can go to school and become a lawyer.
But that's a conflict of interest.
No, Joe. You're a bigot, aren't you?
Any day. I love it.
And the Department of Justice has found that half of the children coming across the border illegally are not coming with their parents. They come with kidnappers, child abusers, and murderers. I'm dead serious. The Trump administration said Thursday that nearly half of the children ages 5 and under who were separated from grown-ups at the U.S. border can't be reunited with their parents, mostly because many of the adults are violent criminals, and some lied about being their minors' parents. Imagine that. Illegals lying. Criminals lying. Now, isn't that a shock?
Yeah.
Gee! But do you hear that on the news? No, you don't. Now, I'm going to hurry through the cost per year in this nation to us with illegal aliens. 11 to 22 billion a year now is spent on welfare to illegal immigrants each year by state governments. Not by the feds, but the states. How many states are going broke?
A lot of them.
Yeah.
$22 billion a year spent on food assistance programs such as food stamps, WIC, and free school lunches for illegal immigrants. That's federal. $2.5 billion a year spent on Medicaid for illegal immigrants. I get this done here. $12 billion a year spent on primary and secondary school education for children here illegally and they cannot speak a word of English. $3 million a day is spent to incarcerate illegal immigrants. 30% of all federal prison inmates are illegal immigrants. 3 out of 10 are illegal immigrants.
Yep.
$90 billion a year spent on illegal immigrants for welfare and school service, social services by the American taxpayer. $200 billion a year is suppressed American wages are called by illegal immigrants. In 2006, illegal immigrants sent $45 billion in remittances to their countries of origin. The dark side of illegal immigration. Nearly 1 million sex crimes committed by illegal immigrants in the United States. Since there are 135 million working taxpayers in America, that works out to $2,500 per taxpayer, or $338.3 billion a year. No biggie. Bring them on in. We can afford it.
When we had Brenda Arthur speak here in Charleston, the state does not know how much money is actually being spent on illegal immigrants.
And we don't have that many here, I don't think, compared to other places.
Comparatively, but you know, their plans, she showed us the plans for big time moving in. And most of it is actually through the Catholic Church.
Well, I know personally people that are veterans who cannot get what's coming to them through the VA, but we can pay for legals.
It's called destruction by design.
Sure it is. It's invasion. Now, how many times over the years have we talked about RFID chips and products?
Yeah.
Well, tire companies are now putting them in their tires. And of course, if they're just tracking them from point of origin to the sale point, that's fine. But they're not deactivating them when they put on the cars. So your tires will tell everybody where you're at any one time. Here's a picture of a tire that's made by Michelin. It says right on the side of it, RFID on the side of it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but we're tracked by cell phones. We're going to be tracked by our tires. We're tracked by your cars. Is there a scheme behind that, do you think? Or is this all coincidence?
Total control.
Captain Albrecht broke this news a long time ago. Remember last time we talked about manipulating DNA and how they were working to extend people's lives through changing DNA? Well, they are now already doing that. Now, this is what they're saying. They've probably done more than this. But they're causing mice to live much longer by changing their genes in their DNA. They find out it actually works. Okay? They're using it for that reason. And in the UK, listen to this, genetically modified babies given go-ahead by UK ethics body. Genetically modified babies.
Brave new world.
the Nuffield Council on Bioethics says changing the DNA of a human embryo could be morally permissible if it is in the child's best interest.
We're going to have a video on that sort of stuff today.
Really? What a coincidence. Making changes to the genes in sperm and eggs in order to minimize future disease could save a significant number of babies from pain and suffering, said a Harvard geneticist. The creation of babies whose DNA has been altered to give them what parents perceive to be the best chance in life have received a cautious green light in a landmark report from the leading UK ethics body. The Nuffield Council on Bioethics said the change of the DNA of a human embryo could be morally permissible if it was in the future child's interest and did not add to the kinds of inequalities that already divide society. Please let that sink in. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I think there are basically two kinds of people. There are those that say, Lord, come back quickly, and there are those that say, I don't want to ever die.
Exactly right. DNA being manipulated is satanic as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're going to have genetically modified babies. That's scary.
I'm wondering with the genetically modified babies, are we opening up gateway to demonic spirits?
Of course we are.
And how many of them will never know Jesus Christ because they've already been dedicated to Satan?
How many of them are going to be one day we'll call clones who really are not, they're soulless?
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. But you see all these new movies out today about zombies and flesh-eating people eating other people's flesh. And they're doing it, by the way. We saw that on video years ago. Could this be part of what they're planning? A soulless individual that has no conscience?
Mm-hmm.
Robotic-type people? They've been working on chips to put in soldiers' brains for years to have them perform as a super soldier. They give the pilots in Vietnam drugs so they perform better and wouldn't get tired. Oh yeah, folks, they did. I was there. I know. Mm-hmm. And these guys come back messed up in the head big time.
There's no love in them. They're out to steal, kill, and destroy.
They're out to fulfill their nirvana. They want their own
Love according to men.
Exactly. In the 2016-2017 fiscal year, detailed in report, Planned Parenthood performed 321,384 murders. Mm-hmm. Last January report, 2015-16, Planned Parenthood performed 328,340 murders. The year before, 323,999 murders. Planned Parenthood has killed over 7.6 million babies since it legally began performing murders in 1973 following the Roe v. Wade decision. That's a catastrophic number. It's easy to read 7.6 million and shrug it off. That's more than 2 times the population of Los Angeles. That's 7,600,000 humans that were never given a chance at life because of Planned Parenthood. 7,600,000 babies that never had an opportunity to celebrate a birthday. And that's not even taking into account the number of babies murdered by Planned Parenthood illegally before Roe v. Wade decision was decided by the United States Supreme Court.
Started by Margaret Sanger, who was given awards by Hitler for her eugenics program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I made sure this last time, I was talking to Pastor Ernie Sanders here a few days ago, and he said the IRS has proven that for every murder that's been recorded for tax purposes, another one's been done under the table, so to speak, so closer to 70 million, 140 million babies have been slaughtered.
Yep.
And people still think this nation is going to be saved by a man in the White House or by Congress or whatever.
If you think of it too, Butch, that all the abortions that have taken place, how much of the generations in the future we destroyed too?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Future politicians, future school teachers,
Doctors, lawyers,
pastors, and the list goes on.
Yes. 2 Arizona calligraphy artists faced with fines and jail time for declining to take part in promoting homosexual weddings are asking the state, now listen, the state Supreme Court to hear the challenge to the City of Phoenix law that compels them to create artwork that violates their religious beliefs. Does that sink in? Joanna Duca and Brianna Koski, owners of Brush and Nip Studio, face up to 6 months in jail, $25 in fines, and 3 years of probation for each day that there is a violation of Phoenix City Code 18-4B. Not only are the Christian women threatened with jail time and fines should they refuse to create artwork celebrating homosexual marriage because of the Phoenix law, they could also be prosecuted for publishing a statement on their website explaining that their religious convictions prohibits them from doing so. Now in this article, they keep using the word gay, Wendy. I would to God they quit calling that gay. The women represented by Alliance Defending Freedom are asking the Arizona State Supreme Court to take the case because the Phoenix ordinance illegally controls artistic expression, according to the ADF, violating the freedom of Duca and Koski to choose which messages they would convey and refrain from conveying. Artists shouldn't be forced to create artwork contrary to the court convictions, and certainly not under threat of criminal fines and jail time. The government must allow artists to make their own decisions about such messages they will promote. Brianna and Joanna are happy to design custom art for all people. They simply object to being forced to pour their heart, their soul, imagination, and talent into creating messages that violate their conscience. Scruggs argued the case before the Arizona Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals has ruled in June that the Phoenix law would stand. So they're going to say that the Supreme Court. Now, let me make a point here. I'll move on to another one. They're appealing to the First Amendment to express their freedom of religion, if you will. But the First Amendment is the same thing that the homosexuals use to get their word out.
Or freedom of choice.
Yes. You can't have both ways. As John Adams said, our Constitution and our government was set up only for moral and religious people. It cannot function in a society that will not govern themselves. Is that, you understand what I'm saying? So they use the Constitution against us, the believers, Christians, and they use it against us because they have more rights than we do. Y'all know that's true? Their rights are more important than our rights. After all, we're bigots.
Well, who kept them in the closet in the past?
Yeah, exactly.
So the Christians aren't doing their job.
They have been for a long, long time. The Episcopal Diocese in the United States, which reject the notion of same-sex marriage, must now allow homosexual and lesbian couples to marry in the church. Now, I'm going to tell you why they must do that. They are government entities. They are not the true Church of Christ. They are 501c3 corporations, and a corporation is created by the state. Whoever creates something is Lord over it, so to speak. You follow what I'm saying? Our Constitution says in Article 10 that the states create the national government, and so therefore we're to be over the national government. That's reversed, hasn't it? And the people create the state, right? The people are to be over the state. And of course, God created people. He's to be over the people. What happened?
Creation out of order, Butch.
Absolutely. The Episcopal Church General Convention meeting in Austin, Texas last week found a way to expand homosexual marriage rights into all dioceses while seemingly respecting the consciences of local bishops who object on theological grounds. How would you do that? Praised as a compromise that doesn't alienate traditionalists, the resolution essentially allows an end-run maneuver around the consciences of the leaders of the 8 U.S. dioceses who are standing firm against the same-sex marriage. Beginning in December, when the homosexual couple wants to marry in a diocese where the same-sex marriage is not condoned, the priest who has agreed to conduct the ceremony will be free to bypass his or her bishop and reach out to an Episcopal bishop elsewhere who can step in and provide pastoral support for the mono-gendered people. Mono-gendered people. How can that ease the conscience of those against it?
You can't.
People, I'm telling you that the 501c3 churches are not the Church of Christ. I've been a little bit early today, that's fine. If you don't think If you don't believe we live in a police state and that Christianity is under attack, I'm going to share an article with you that I think you'll find important. This is written by Todd Starnes. Mm-hmm. You will pay attention to this because it's very serious. Not only are they coming down on businesses and churches, they're now coming into individuals' homes and telling them they cannot have church in their home. That's been a law in Virginia for a long time. Now they're coming in and they're going to enforce it by force if necessary. Jerry Brown, by the way, the governor of California, a different issue, but important one, has threatened to put people in jail who will not vaccinate their children. Mm-hmm. Now, what part of police state don't you believe we're in? And how many times have we told you over the years that Christianity, true Christianity, is going to be under attack? Isn't that what the Bible says in Revelation, that Satan will destroy, have power of the church? Is that what it says? Mm-hmm. Is that what it says? Mm-hmm. And then the false church, he will also destroy before his time is up. But right now he's after the true believers. And the Lord God said, I will give him the power of the churches. I will let Satan take him out. Now, folks, I know you want to hear that. But where does judgment begin?
That's God.
We will not face God's wrath. We're going to face Satan's wrath. Because we did not occupy till Christ came. You cannot blame the president or the Senate or anybody else. The blame is behind the pulpits in the churches of America. If the Episcopal Church was truly a church of Christ, I don't want to sound nasty, but I want to say like they tell them go to hell. We're not going to do that here. If it means bloodshed on the church steps, so be it. We're not going to ordain sodomy in our fellowship. Now, that's harsh preaching, but it's still Bible. You don't back up when something is an abomination. You can't condone it. You can't allow it and call yourself a believer. Any comments, Phil?
That's it.
Cease and desist. Town orders families to stop hosting Bible studies on their farm. The owners of a Pennsylvania farm have been ordered by the Sewickley Heights Borough to cease and desist holding Bible studies on their private property. Borough leaders accused Scott and Terry Federhoff of improperly using their 35-acre farm as a place of worship, a place of assembly, and as a commercial venue.
Well, the first thing that tells you, Butch, is that's not their property.
That's exactly right. And a commercial venue for having church? Is a church supposed to be a commercial venue? Are we here to buy and sell?
No.
They were served a cease and desist order October 2017, the Post Gazette reported. The Independence Law Center filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of the farmers against the borough, alleging an egregious violation of the U.S. Constitution. Now we're right back again to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Folks, the Constitution was doomed to fail whenever they started with we the people. When people govern themselves without the law of God, what did they become? Beast. Mm-hmm. According to the lawsuit, the federal officer was threatened with fines of $500 per day, plus court costs, for having Bible studies at their home, having meetings where religious songs are sung, conducting any religious retreats for church leaders or seminary students, or conducting any religious fundraisers. The borough has no business overseeing a group of people reading and discussing the book together on private property. Even if that book's the Bible, Attorney Randall Winger said in a statement. The lawsuit accuses the government leaders of violating religious freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom and equal protection. Government should not target religious activities for punishment, particularly when similar secular activities are permitted. Attorney Jeremy Simic said, in America, no government can categorically ban people from assembling to worship on that one's property. To that point, the lawsuit alleges that the borough allows other activities and gatherings, ranging from political rallies to a Harry Potter event. So government leaders the government leaders allows muggles to cavort on whatever a muggle is, to cavort in Segway Heights Borough. They should afford the same rights to Christians gathering for Bible study on private property. Mm. As long as we argue the court battles in the name of the Constitution instead of the name of Jesus Christ, we're losing the battle.
Yeah.
There's no point in arguing of this. I mean, you're right. Why argue? I've told my boys when they're growing up, as youngins, in my house, it's my rules. And I'm going to lead by the Bible. As best I understand it, Joe.
right.
And this is not up for a vote. It's not up for discussion. This is the way it is in my house. Until we start saying that in the kingdom of Jesus Christ, of whom I'm a member, of whom I'm a citizen of, it's not going to be this way. I'm not going to debate the Constitution with you. I'm not going to debate the law with you. It is God's law, and that's it. Discussion over. If it means that it must come to blows, then so be it. I'm telling you, my people that listen to this teaching, that's going to come a time one day, your convictions are going to be tried if they're real or not. Mm-hmm. Will you defend your family and your duty to serve God on your own property? Or will you give in to survive another week or two or another year or two? You were given the duty to protect yourself and family. You were blessed with the duty to keep and bear arms. If you do not use them to protect your family, you're denying the faith and are worse than an infidel. And that means for those who come to my house to study the Bible, I will defend their right to do so, their duty to do so. That is our duty. We are citizens of God, of the kingdom of heaven, not of this world. Now that's pretty clear. And when governments are against the kingdom of God, then we must be against that government. You can't serve two masters.
Yep.
We're going to watch some videos now for the next few minutes. After the videos go off, take a little break. We'll come back and finish the lesson we started last week. And the entitled will be "It Feels So Right." Don't go away.
Hey Internet friends! Within all of us are traces of the past, present, and future. We carry the imprint of our ancestors which resulted in the sequence of right now. Us, in this moment, chock full of quirks our children will inherit, all written into our DNA. The hereditary material found in everyone, but is so specific and unique to an individual that it can reveal how likely we are to have freckles, how we interpret different tastes and smells, if we're carriers for certain diseases, and how our genes indicate our overall well-being. DNA tells a story, acting as a roadmap through our body's deeply intimate data. An individual's DNA is more identifying than a name, a social security number, or even a fingerprint. So why is a multinational tech company with a focus on internet-related services and products so interested in the genetic codes of millions of strangers? Why does a company that data mines from you want to mine DNA from you? And most importantly, why does Google want your DNA? Let me begin by introducing you to the Wojcicki sisters. You probably already know Susan. She served as the CEO of YouTube since 2014. Her sister, Janet, is a professor of pediatrics, with a great deal of her work taking place in Africa. The youngest sister, Anne, is the CEO of 23andMe, a for-profit human genome research company that allows consumers to study their ancestry, genealogy, and inherited traits. Anne was once married to Sergey Brin, Google's co-founder and current president of Google's parent company, Alphabet Inc. The story goes a little something like this. In 1998, Susan rented out a garage to Google founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page. Susan was hired as Google's 18th employee, and Sergey married her sister Anne in 2007, 1 year after Anne co-founded 23andMe. If you were wondering about the 23, it represents the number of chromosome pairs in humans. The company began as a mail-order genetics testing firm backed by investors like Anne's husband. The company offers kits that test and produce reports, which reveal anything from your ancestry to whether or not you carry genetic markers that are associated with risk for certain health conditions, to reports on your overall wellness and muscle composition and your likelihood of inheriting certain traits, ranging from hair color to how your body responds to alcohol or caffeine. All you have to do is purchase the kit, register it, spit in a tube, mail your prepaid package back to 23andMe, and then wait several weeks for your results. 23andMe's biobank is the world's largest repository of DNA samples. This biobank contains extensive health information on millions of individuals, and these DNA samples were willingly provided by paying customers. Selling access to this biobank to undisclosed third parties is a major source of profit for 23andMe. They've essentially monetized the human genome, which is all the genetic information on a person, packaged and sold like a commodity. This is probably why Google Ventures, the investment arm of Google, continues to financially back 23andMe, because Google already stores categories of the world's information. Having the world's largest repository of DNA samples certainly gives them an advantage in the multi-billion-dollar medical field. Though to build this biobank and continue to profit, 23andMe is always searching for new ways to get customers to join. That's probably why you recognize the rainbow box kit that has been heavily marketed across television and the internet. Propagated endlessly on Ancestors Stronghold, YouTube, by some of the same influencers who have interviewed the president at the White House and hosted Bill Gates on their channel. Other video makers create sponsored videos detailing their test results, showcasing special and unique details about themselves to their captive audience. You can see their sponsored referral links in their video descriptions. The packaging of this sponsored content often mirrors the packaging of the 23andMe kit, adorned with rainbow imagery, framing this whole pay to get your DNA stored in a biobank as harmless entertainment. But if we traveled somewhere over the rainbow and we discovered a lab in which we could put 23andMe under a microscope, would we observe only harmless entertainment for the consumer? Would 23andMe's mission statement to help people access, understand, and benefit from the human genome, would this mission statement stand tall amongst other noble pursuits? Or would we see a more complex reality? We've already identified 23andMe's Silicon Valley roots with 23andMe's personal and professional relationship with Google. Google's parent company, Alphabet Inc., resides in Silicon Valley amongst other juggernauts like Apple, Amazon, and even Twitter, companies that sell our data to third parties. And of course, the government can access this data as well. All they usually need is a warrant. We've allowed these companies to have access to our minds, our homes, our fingerprints, and now our DNA, because we believed we were the customer when we were actually the product. Plus, we didn't have time to read over those dozens of pages of terms and conditions. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Now that we've established how the human genome is monetized by companies like 23andMe, let's discuss the privacy concerns, the potential for weaponization, and how the brave new world of the for-profit genome industry affects everyone. Concern over access to an individual's DNA data reignited back in April when California law enforcement announced the arrest of suspect Joseph James DeAngelo, otherwise known as the Golden State Killer, a name given to a serial killer from the 1970s. Recently, investigators reanalyzed the DNA found at one of the crime scenes, ran the results through a DNA base which linked back to one of DeAngelo's relatives. That's how they were able to tie him to the murders. While we can all agree it's great that they might have found a serial killer, how are we to know that this data is secure? Or who has access to it? With DNA being a revealing source of information about an individual, this is where the water begins to get murky. Your DNA sequence isn't yours alone. You share it with your relatives. And even though companies like 23andMe say they remove your information like your name and address when they allow third parties to access your DNA, anonymized DNA will never be truly anonymous because genes serve as identifying information. Studies have revealed that researchers could correctly uncover people's surnames from their genetic data alone with the aid of a DNA database. While the United States government already has most of our DNA on file if you were born in a hospital, joined the military, or were incarcerated in some states, DNA databases make it all the more convenient to nail you to a crime. With this new era of DNA testing, DNA altering services have emerged along with gene editing tools. So criminals could, theoretically, have their DNA permanently altered to avoid a repeat of this Golden State Killer situation. Doesn't gene editing sound like the basis of some weird sci-fi movie? Well, often the truth is stranger than fiction. For example, Google Ventures founder Bill Maris dismissed the fight to protect the privacy of genetic data, stating that if we keep our genetic information a secret, then we're all going to die. Someone needs to break it to old Bill that no one makes it out of life alive. But apparently he's pretty dedicated to the concept of immortality. Maris is the founder of Calico, who also invests in Ancestry DNA. The goal of Calico is to hack the DNA of life and combat the effects of aging. Back in 2013, when Maris was asked about the research going on at Google Ventures, Maris indicated that the research could extend the human lifespan to 500 years. And he urged folks to embrace the idea of a life everlasting. But here's the thing. Members of the upper echelon already use their platform to push the narrative that overpopulation is a problem. And in the future, the Earth's resources will be exhausted without population control. But if an extended lifespan is achieved, wouldn't overpopulation worsen? So how would it be determined who is allowed to live that long? Who can reproduce? Who gets to decide? Have you heard that scientists have linked genes to intelligence? 23andMe said it's not telling people their brain rating out of concern that information would be poorly received. So brain scores from DNA tests are being documented, just not disclosed to the consumer. What standards or incentives are in place for accuracy on reporting these scores amongst for-profit companies, whether it be scores for wellness or intelligence? And if the goal of 23andMe investors like Google Ventures is to extend the lifespan and eventually achieve immortality, will brain scores play a factor in who is approved to live that long? 23andMe already holds a designer baby patent through which parents could predict certain traits in children. More specifically, what has been patented is the method of predicting from parents' DNA the likelihood their baby would have certain traits. The patent itself describes how this system could be utilized in fertility clinics, where the baby's sex, weight, eye color, intelligence, or personality characteristics, and even their risks for certain medical conditions could be decided upon before the baby is even conceived. While 23andMe reported they have no plans to use this designer baby system to the fullest extent, this does sound like a slippery slope to eugenics or the science of improving a human population by controlled breeding to increase the occurrence of desirable heritable characteristics, which, spoiler alert, has already been practiced in the United States and resulted in compulsory sterilization of patients in mental hospitals, and the creation of the Negro Project in 1939 by Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger, which yielded in a push for birth control amongst African American communities. Eugenics in the United States is not limited to these examples, but they do serve as a cautionary tale that yes, eugenics happened long ago, and these eugenicists are still around today. Which brings us to our next point. Did you know there's such a thing as ethnobombs? Think of a biological weapon like anthrax or even the bubonic plague. but the weapon is tailored to target sequences that belong to specific ethnicities. In 1998, it was reported that Israel was developing a biological weapon targeted at Arab genes, leaving the ethnically Jewish unharmed. The ethnobomb they aimed to create was a genetically modified bacterium or virus. That was 20 years ago. Recently, it was revealed that Google has been providing the US military with their artificial intelligence technology. Is this why Google met with the White House 427 times during President Obama's tenure? How long until 23andMe's biobank is utilized by third parties like the US military to develop genetically targeted biological weapons? Or is that already taking place? While biological warfare has been around for some time, it seems like we have a few more years until designer babies are a reality for the average citizen. Right now, a potential soft eugenics is beginning to form, not at all the sole responsibility of 23andMe. The blame really falls on the behalf of American legislators who are in the deep pockets of lobbyists. The Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008 prohibits some types of genetic discrimination in obtaining health insurance and employment, but there are loopholes. Last year, members of Congress attempted to remove a portion of the genetic privacy protection, allowing employers to demand to see their employees' genetic information. This is worrisome when we factor in the rise of direct-to-consumer DNA testing, the market of which is projected to grow exponentially over the next decade. On the 23andMe website, the fine print reads, "If you are asked by an insurance company whether you have learned genetic information about health conditions and you do not disclose them, well, it may be considered fraud on your behalf." So in the future, when the trend continues to show that our legislators favor corporations over citizens, if your aunt or your brother or your grandma take a DNA test and their results reveal they have a propensity towards a difficult to treat condition, will your employer or your insurer drop you after having access to your family's DNA reports? With the average American not being able to cover the costs of out-of-pocket health care, will we see a rise in deaths associated with treatable conditions once insurance companies have access to these reports and individuals' genes are used against them? So let's circle back to this question. Why does Google want your DNA? While I realize the possibilities and examples I provided in this video paint a dark picture, it's important you understand that even the smallest act can change the course of the future. The purpose of this video is not to belittle your wants or desires of discovering information about yourself and your family, but my goal here is to illustrate that we've allowed companies to have access to our homes, our minds, and now our DNA. Yes, technology is a double-edged sword. It has the potential to help and to harm. If we look back on our history with these tech companies like Google, we'd see that our privacy was never taken from us. We gave it up willingly. But that doesn't mean we have to keep repeating this pattern. Please take a moment to research the risks associated with any service you use. Whether it's posting a picture of your newborn baby on Facebook or sending a vial of your spit to a DNA testing company. What do you think, internet friends? Have you ever used these DNA testing services? What was your experience? You know, I always look forward to your comments. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel on Patreon. Bye!
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness. and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.